Good morning, Geneseo. You're listening to WGRG 100.5 FM. And in a rare live broadcast here on WGRG, we're starting something new this morning that we're calling Let's Talk Geneseo. Largely, it's me roping somebody into something type operation, but and anybody that knows me knows how those go sometimes. But most of you know I'm an alderman here in the city of Geneseo. And one thing that's come up at that as elected officials, we're always looking for ways to improve communication and share information with the residents. And while we live in a time now to where there's many diverse sources of information, what we're finding though is that it can be difficult to find detailed information or sources where you could go a little bit more in depth on topics and things that are affecting the city. So this program is largely an attempt. It'll be myself and City Administrator Brandon Meglin. And Brandon, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thanks, Keith.
And what we're going to try to do, and this is our goal, is whenever school is in session, but on Friday mornings at 7:30, we're going to have this informal radio program here on WGRG, which is also streamed, though, on TV 50, ITV 50, WB6 network, various outlets, if you will. But just kind of talk a little bit in some detail and a little bit more depth of things that we think would be of interest to the residents. So we'll give you advance notice. Probably want to put on your seatbelts. This might be a little bit of a bumpy ride here at first, but it's going to be informal. It's going to be a work in progress, and but we will be adhering at least initially, unless we find that we do this for 3 months and nobody's listening. Then we may pull the plug. But we're going to stick to the school schedule. So if there's school on a Friday morning, we'll be here at 7:30. If it's a school holiday or what have you, there isn't school that day, then we will not be here as well. So with that, I would like to introduce our city administrator, Brandon Meglin, and invite him to maybe tell us a little bit about how he ended up being our city administrator, and also maybe a little bit about just the overall structure of our city staff.
Sure. Well, thanks, Keith. The first thing I noticed is we need an intro song for this program.
It's a work in progress, Brandon. We will now.
Going in cold from a song just isn't going to work if we're going to keep doing this.
And someday remind me to tell you the story of the Mount Prospect Village Board meeting I was at, because that'll be interesting. But yeah, we'll put that on the list of things. One of our goals is to come up with some sort of intro.
Yeah. So a little bit about me. I've actually been doing the job of city administrator since February of 2022 now, when Joanne Hollenkamp, our former city administrator, took a job back towards her hometown. Now works for Greenville, Illinois, as the city administrator. I've worked for the city since 2016. Before taking over for Joe, I was the city's HR director and did that through early 2022. The council, when Joanne announced she was leaving, said, hey, you interested in stepping up into the interim city administrator role? And things were going very well at the city at that time. Great cohesion between staff and council and the community. And I said, yeah, let's give it a run. We did that for a while. About 6 months passed or so, and we started having conversations about doing it as a permanent job. So very thankful to be here. Tabitha is my fiance, we lived in Kelowna prior to knowing this was going to be a permanent gig. And we moved to town in May 4th of this year. Glad to be here. We're within walking distance of downtown. We can get to State Street in about 2 minutes. We love it. So it's a little bit of the history on me. Outside of the city administrator gig, I also try to get involved in other things in Henry County and beyond, serve on the Chamber Board, Henry County Economic Development Partnership, Board of Directors, Henry County Tourism Board of Directors, as well as a volunteer nonprofit called Seal Family Legacy, where we serve Gold Star families with children under the age of 18. It's a Quad Cities initiative that has been a very rewarding thing as well. So,
and one thing that Brandon has done, and from an aldermanic perspective, we set this as a goal, but a lot of it though is just it's in one's personality, and Brandon's done a great job of getting involved in things beyond just the city and recognizing that as a city, our greatest successes come when we work together with the other organizations in town, whether it be the chamber, the school district, or what have you. And Brandon's been very involved in that, and that's really led to nothing but good things and additional opportunities, I think, for the community when there's more of a we approach as opposed to us and them approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to the second part of your question, how the city works a little bit. We're the government. It's a mayor-council form of government here in Geneseo. We actually have an election every year. So every year we're preparing. The county holds the elections, but we have a mayor and we have 8 aldermen, Keith being one of them, of course. The mayors serve staggered 2-year terms. So every year we're cycling 4 aldermen. A lot of times people run for another term, or we get new people that run and have new people cycle in. From a city staff perspective, myself, the city administrator position, and the chief of police, Casey Disterhoff, both report to the mayor and the city council. Casey oversees the police department side, the crossing guards, the officers, school resource officers, everything public safety-wise. And then on the city side, we oversee the public works department, the electric department, the administrative employees. And right now we have 63 full-time employees that work in those different departments. Public works is split down into park, water, wastewater, street, and cemetery. Those all roll up into the public works umbrella. And electric, Geneseo is unique in that we have our own electric utility. There's a handful of those in the state of Illinois. Quad Cities folks, even some of our neighbors, they all have private power companies that supply them. So we're very unique having our own electric utility. Very fortunate in a lot of respects. We experienced that this year, March 31st. We had a tornado enter the city limits on the west side of town. April 4th, actually, that storm did more damage with straight line winds, took down our transmission line coming into Geneseo. So when things happen like that, we realize, the real benefit of having our own electric. We have a power plant here where when those lines go down from a feed of power from the Quad Cities area, we're able to generate our own power, and our linemen and distribution groups get us back online fairly quickly compared to, you look at the impacts of the straight line winds, tornadoes, in some parts of the Quad Cities, people are out for days. And we're very fortunate. We don't see that here because we have a dedicated team that get us back up and running as quickly as possible. And they're first responders, just like police and fire. Those guys, when we have those things, they have to respond the same way and be here. Really going down the electric path there. Sorry.
Yep. And we all need power.
Yeah, but it is a very unique thing to the city, and some people don't realize that, even that live here, that we have our own electric power plant and can supply our own power. And then, of course, all the wind turbine, the solar array, and the green energy aspects of what have been done here in the past 10 to 15 years is also unique.
And not to interrupt you, Brandon, but maybe on a future program, because really that's could be a whole program in itself, is maybe going into a little bit more depth about how the power utility is operated and how we typically receive our power, but again, these other opportunities to generate as the need arises. And so maybe we can have Eric or somebody come in someday and talk a little bit more in depth on that. But it is unique. Sometimes we get, as elected officials, sometimes we'll get the questions on, do we need a power plant? Do we need these things? Right up until we lose a feed and we're able to generate power, and that has happened. Very, well, I don't want to say frequently, but not infrequently, to where the neighboring areas of the county will be without power for hours or days, like you say, and usually we're able to get the city back up relatively quickly, barring any spot damage that there may be in town that inhibits this particular area being regenerated until we can safely get lines back up and that sort of thing. So anyway, just like
it's interesting when during those events, we the city will get calls from people that just touch the edge of Geneseo's distribution system, wanting to know why their power's on, but why it's not on, but they can see the lights on in all the homes next to them, which is on our system. Well, they're fed by a different service than the city of Geneseo. So.
Yeah, I have a 12-gauge extension cord that's a few hundred feet, so I just have a $50 buy-in fee and run the cord over.
Not legal.
Oh, I guess I shouldn't have said that. But anyway, yeah, Brandon, but didn't mean to interrupt what you were saying there.
Yeah, so that's kind of the base structure of the city. We have, like I said, 63 full time. We go up closer into the 80s, 90 mark during the summer when we hire on seasonal employees to do a lot of the turf management, the turf maintenance, cutting grass, doing the weed whacking in the cemeteries, the parks. We have to take our numbers up with seasonal employees and really appreciate everybody that we're able to hire to do that. It's a lot of local high school students a lot of times, college students, other people just looking for a seasonal gig, something to do in those summer and early fall months. So very fortunate to have great city staff across departments right now, the cohesion, cooperation, people willing to go above and beyond. We're very fortunate to have departments just loaded with people with a servant attitude.
That is so true. Well, ready to jump into it?
Sure.
All right, topic one. Topic one, brown water. That certainly has been a comment that we've been hearing a fair amount over the summer here. And how about we just jump in and answer the question of why do we have brown water?
Yeah, well, that's a very broad question. So some of the first thing I'll say is we would highly encourage everybody to visit cityofgeneseo.com. There's a button at the top of the page called Water Resources. We have done our best to try to keep up with the questions that come in, keeping up on a document with what's going on at the city council level with how they're addressing infrastructure needs, things that come up with emergencies, how they're dealing with the drought conditions, all these things that affect our water supply. Try to compile that data there along with our water quality reports, when those questions come up as concerns. It's all there. Of course, feel free to follow up with any of us at City Hall if anybody has any questions on those documents. One thing that's been unique about this year, we have had a lot of water challenges. We've had some big water main breaks. We have aging infrastructure across town. Our water system is aging. The council budgets for so much replacement every year, trying to pinpoint the mains that are in the most severe need. So this year we saw a couple of big breaks. The other thing that came up, as most people know, in May and June, we were in extreme drought here, and it came very early this year. It's often dry in the summer, but in May we started experiencing, this huge stretch of no rain. We have a lot of lawn irrigation systems in Geneseo. We have a lot of people that enjoy watering their lawns. We rely on groundwater here in Geneseo. We rely on wells. We do not pull from the Mississippi River. We don't pull from the Rock River. We rely on an aquifer that sits under the city of Geneseo. So, a couple of the unique challenges this year, the easiest way for me to think of it is it's like when we're flushing fire hydrants, when we have extreme demand, whether it's from extreme irrigation, extreme watering, or a break in the system where the demand is thousands and thousands of gallons every minute pouring from an area or going to an area where there's an extreme demand. All of that water is moving at a very high velocity, just like when we flush fire hydrants. There's natural sediment, there's natural minerals that build up inside of the infrastructure in the mains, in people's homes, old plumbing, old piping. There's things that settle out in pipes. When we see that extreme velocity and extreme pressure, it does tend to stir up the water and discolor it. Some, depending on where people are at in the system, it can be more extreme in some places than others. Of course, nobody wants to see that. We again really encourage we try to do our best at communicating when we have a break, when we're experiencing a mass use situation, whether it's from flushing. Of course, we announce a break that could impact water discoloration, extreme usage scenarios too. We saw this year, the city council took action on by passing a water emergency response ordinance as well as a water conservation plan for the town. Two things that haven't been in place here and are very common for communities that depend on groundwater, wells pumping the water out of the ground, and an aquifer that has limited supplies of water depending on the season and how much it's tapped into.
And one of the things to go and to maybe not give this will be kind of a very basic explanation, but as we draw from this aquifer, and we're considered to be on shallow wells, if you will, but an aquifer is really nothing more than an underground lake, and the one we pull from is several hundred miles in size, but we're not the only ones pulling out of it either.
Yeah.
In that, and Illinois is a bit unique in that there really are no restrictions on. Let's say if you're a farmer with an irrigation system, you could be 50 feet outside the city limits, if you will, and sink a well and draw out of that same aquifer. So we have a lot of draw from this aquifer, which then affects our wells and what level they're drawing water from, and you may be asking, well, okay, this is all great, but how do we get brown water? But the two things about when there's a main break or when there's any sort of a stress on the system, we have water mains that are decades and decades and decades old. And so as water is flowing through them all the time, but over time they build up sediment and what have you that kind of just gathers on the inside of it. And anytime there's some sort of a change, a much higher draw or a shock to the system, it's almost like taking a hammer and knocking it, and it knocks this sediment loose, and you can then have this sediment then that has to kind of work its way through through the system. So when there is a main break, and as Brandon just said, and we just had a large one actually in front of the fire station, and we're looking at replacing some piping and stuff there, but many of the mains are decades and decades, probably approaching 75 years or even older than that, and we replace them as we can. But when one of them goes, then yes, you could have a temporary period to where a given area may have brown water. But what we were experiencing earlier this spring, though, is that with the unexpected high demand, and Chad or somebody can correct me, but I think we have the ability to, if we're just running all out, to maybe do like 10 to 12 million gallons a day of water delivery ish.
Yeah.
And that's everything running full bore. Typically, we like to be around 8-ish, 7-ish.
So what you're slightly off, I believe. Now, my numbers could be wrong, too.
I'll go with your numbers.
Now, let's preface this with how you open this informal conversation. Doing our best here.
Yes.
Unscripted. But so when the council discussed that water emergency ordinance in the springtime around May, I believe the numbers that we talked about that time were usual usage is 650,000 gallons to about 750 a day.
Oh, correct.
And we were going over for the month of May and a good part of June. We were up to around 1 million gallons per day.
And yeah, actually, let me let me clarify that. It's early in the morning. I need more caffeine, but that is correct. It was right about 1 million or so. As if everything's going perfectly, and that's what we can do. But we normally run around 600,000 or so
in that part of the year. Yeah,
and I guess so when we run at maximum capacity, though, you can do that for kind of a short period, but in the spring, it was an extended period of time to where we're having this demand and this demand and this demand, and as we're drawing from this aquifer, everything that comes out of the plant, everything that comes out of your faucet is, it's treated, it's purified, the water is safe to drink. However, we do have and installed in the city years ago, but on Chicago Street, we do have at our treatment plant the iron removal plant, and that is what removes the iron from the water. And some of the longtime residents may remember prior to when we had that plant put in. You want to talk about brown water.
Yeah.
And so that the reason for installing those plants is, as its name would imply, iron removal is to remove the iron from it. But when we're it needs a certain amount of time to go through that process
Right.
to remove all of the iron.
Right.
And when we're running all out, it just doesn't get the full length of time it needs to remove all of the iron. And so that was what we were experiencing in the springtime as well. And so with the inaction and just spreading the word to the public that, hey, do what you can, we have been able to better manage that. And that aspect of it has been addressed with getting back to usage levels that we can handle. But as Brandon said, too, we are looking at to the future and recognizing that we need to look at possibly new wells or deeper wells or additional sources of water, because we know that even with our best conservation efforts, we're not going to see any dramatic reduction in use. That it's only going to grow over a time, and we're in the process now of budgeting and looking at more of those long-term things to prevent as best we can these just give us a larger margin for error. Again, our community has been growing. Our businesses have been growing. The water use has been growing, and now we kind of have to address that with just good planning to make sure we have water use for the future. Now, of course, with that always comes the anything along those lines involves money being spent, and and that's an aspect as your elected officials and what have you. We have to strike that balance.
Yeah.
We had just completed a major renovation of the wastewater plant, which had served its purpose well, but really has been in needs of an upgrade and expanded capacity for many years. And and we've been able to do that and complete that with a really a very limited impact on rates. And that would also, though, be our goal on the water side, too, is that, yes, we need to do these things, but we also have to be aware that everybody has a budget we're living in.
Yeah.
And to do it in a way that doesn't also put any sort of an undue burden on the customers.
Yeah, and the action items, so what is going on right now? The council has approved. We have test drilling that's going on actively this week for a fifth well, because as Keith just discussed, the iron removal plant. And then if you rewind, before that, it's about pumping and pumping strain that equipment. The addition of wells will help. When the wells that we have 4 in service right now, run when they double pump, when they're running as hard as they were this spring and summer. They require a lot of maintenance. They don't last as long. We need that fifth well. So that test drilling's going on now. It's a very long process, though. People ask, how long is this going to take? But there's, first we get approval for test drilling on private land. Then there's talk about land acquisition and the cost. And then we talk about engineering the well, and from there, then it goes into construction bidding, and they're long processes, unfortunately. But
and there obviously along with that, there's numerous state regulations and requirements that we have to comply with, and so nothing happens, quickly. But it definitely is on the the council radar screen, and we hope to have a firm plan in place here before too long. But as part of that, not to go too deep into the weeds, but right now again we're all in what's referred to as shallow wells, and part of it is that if we go deeper, there's a deeper aquifer that we could draw from that may be a bit more, I don't want to say stable for a lack of a better word, but usually the deeper you go, sometimes the more robust the supply could be. However, not all groundwater is the same. And so if you're pulling from a deeper aquifer, it may require a slightly different treatment process or what have you than if you're drawing out of a shallow aquifer. It's all the water quality dictates that. And so that also, it's just not as simple as, okay, we're going to drill another hole and start taking out water.
And to that point, again, what are the action items? Council has approved the start of looking at a sixth well, probably going to be a deeper well, as Keith just explained. That would have its own smaller treatment facility to treat, because it has to be built differently to treat different waters from different levels of the ground, and possibly its own storage tank too, to take some pressure off the shallow wells in the current system and water towers that we have. So it's a long-term plan. It's a lot of design. Right now, what we've done, the mayor put together a committee to look at RFQs, requests for qualifications, on firms to start designing what this thing would look like and where we could put it. So, we'll see that in council pretty soon.
All right. Well, I think unless you have anything more to add on
that's a lot of water.
Brown water, I think probably everyone has said, okay, that's all we want to know
Thirsty
about.
now.
All you want to know about water. So, and one thing I guess I should add this too. We want your input. I probably should have said this at the start of the program, but we would like your input too. If there's some question you have, some comments or what have you, send Brandon an email. Email's really the best way to do it. You could also you send me one, but it'd be better if it goes to Brandon's email. And what would that email address be, Brandon?
Sure. It's bmeglin@cityofgeneseo.com, BMAEGLIN at cityofgeneseo.com. Keith kind of opened with this, but the intent here is not to sit and listen to us on this program every Friday morning.
Ramble on about something you're not interested about.
This is the introduction show, I guess. But our plan is to have, because it would get very boring very quick, but to have other folks in, interesting things going on in the community, events coming up, people that have put on, done certain things to make an impact and are making an impact. So, next week we've invited Sheila Wygant McGee in to spend a little bit of time here with us. Sheila is the one who initiated the idea of Spook the Loop, which took place a couple of weekends ago, ended up being a fabulous community development initiative is how I look at it. It was a great, huge event. I mean, on the scale of some of the big chamber events that we had in town. And, I had this kind of wild idea of, let's bring Butch Patrick, Eddie Munster, back to Geneseo, where he lived as a boy for 6 months. And it just took off into this pretty neat thing that we had people come in from all over the region to attend. So she'll be with us next Friday.
Well, and look forward to that. And as Brandon said, we hope to have guests, in every program, which then largely also takes some of the stress off of us of having to fill the time. Yeah. Okay, topic 2.
We have 3 minutes.
Okay, wait. Okay, and we're having actually a school announcement right now, so. Yeah. And so hopefully Emma makes it to the office okay. The other thing, and we're right now just going with kind of 2 of the most common comments that we hear. One was water. The other is, let's just jump into it, storm sirens. With the the last storm, the sirens were sounded, and there's a lot of question of why are we sounding the sirens and that sort of thing. And Brandon, feel free to expound on this, but my answer, and this is the answer, is that we aren't weather forecasters and we aren't weather professionals. So basically, we follow whatever the National Weather Service instructs for our area. So if they issue a severe thunderstorm warning, if they issue these various warnings, and depending on how the level of the warning issued, that's what determines whether or not we sound the siren. So there won't be a time to where the National Weather Service issues a warning and there's somebody that says, don't blow the siren. We're not, we don't think there's going to, that's not going to happen. The only time that we may vary from that would be almost related to what we had in April, in that there may not be a specific warning issued, but when conditions are right, we actually do have trained weather spotters, and it's largely policemen, fire department, other volunteers, but largely it falls on the police. That they'll go out to the corners of town and just kind of keep an eye and look at things.
Right.
And if they personally then see something developing, if they see a tornado forming, yeah, we're blowing the sirens. Even if the National Weather Service, they may be seeing it at the same time, but there's a delay in them issuing the warning.
Yeah.
So if we see some imminent threat that we're actually again seeing, then we would blow the siren. But other than that, we just follow what the National Weather Service tells us, and we don't want to go down the road of deciding that, well, this time we think they're right, this time we think they're wrong. We're not doing that.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be, kind of frustrating. I experienced that too. It's, what is this? But they're going to always err on the side of caution. And like Keith said, it's if we're kind of in a unique situation in a small town where we have weather spotters where, if there's reported tornadoes like back on March 31st, we were hearing about this. They go out to the four corners of town essentially and are, eyes on the ground watching, what happened on March 31st. They could actually see that thing coming in from the west side of town. And now, just so everybody knows, we're in the high school, and there's a loudspeaker in the radio station.
And I should give some of you that anyone that's still with us, right now we're hearing it's the morning announcements for the high school. Obviously, our studio and facilities are located here at the high school, and but yeah, that's something that we'll work on, and that we do. We are in a former classroom, so we are catching the morning announcements, and so hopefully that's not too distracting. But that's what you're hearing in the background.
We can get some duct tape, and we can duct tape the speaker up next week or something.
There's a fix for that. Had your host here planned better. So we'll work on that. But anyway, on the that's a little bit of a background, Joe, on how the siren thing works and when it's blown and when it isn't. Just be aware, though, and I think most residents don't know that, because I actually didn't know that until I came on board council. Is that we actually will send officers out, and again other trained professionals that will look and see, and then as part of that, not only are they warning us, they would also relay that information to the Weather Service as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's. That covers that. So we probably, real quick, I know we have popular things in the fall, our e-waste collection and cleanup week. Anything you can share on that, Brandon?
Yeah. So we are having an e-waste day again this year. This year's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be at the street department. In recent years, people have been used to driving through the City Hall parking lot for e-waste. Encourage everybody to check out the website or Facebook page, so before they attend this event, to know exactly what's allowed and what's not. The list has changed a little bit. This year, we're working with a nonprofit called PCs for People. So instead of all this stuff ending up in the garbage or recycled, this is a nonprofit that actually takes the PCs and other electronics that they can refurbish and gives them to low-income families that may not be able to afford PCs for children and such that don't have them. So it's kind of a neat partnership. It's actually going to save us a little bit of money, too. They come in and pick up all of these items, use what they can, and recycle the rest or dispose of the rest. So that's on September 23rd. Details on that on the website and the Facebook page on what you can and can't bring. If you live outside of city limits, there are fees associated with bringing items. And if you're a city resident, a refuse customer, it's free for you to do that.
All right, good deal. And that has really grown in popularity over the years as well.
Yeah.
Is the amount of e-waste that we handle each year.
Yeah, the other big one in the fall that people are often asking about date-wise is fall cleanup. So curbside bulk waste item pickup. That is September 18th through September 21st this year, Monday through a Thursday. Yeah.
All right. Well, all good. Well, let's. I think it's time to pull the plug. We don't want to make T-shirts that say, "Hey, I survived their first radio program," type thing for the listeners. But hopefully, you found this informational, semi-entertaining. But Brandon, appreciate you taking the time and coming out. What's a Brandon weekend? Typical Brandon weekend. What do we have to look forward to? Well, what do you have to look forward to?
Well, this weekend, we are going to have some fun. Tomorrow, playing out at, I play golf sometimes, a handful of times this year, but playing in a little thing that a friend has organized out at TPC Deer Run. Get to play that course once a year.
Oh, well, there you go.
A little bit pricey, compared to our local Geneseo courses, but playing in a little outing out there tomorrow, so should be fun.
Well, hey, sounds good. It should be a little bit nicer weather. That would have been fun doing it yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, Sugar Maple, canceled our Thursday night league out there because of the heat last night. So, which is probably good because I was nice and chipper this morning rather than staying out at the golf course late night in the heat. So.
Well, there you go. Okay. Well, Brandon, again, thank you very much for coming in. Thank you, everyone, for listening or watching or streaming or however you're viewing this. And, again, we'll be back next Friday morning at 7:30. And our guest, Brandon, again?
Next week is Sheila Wygant McGee, the originator of Spook the Loop and also a great local artist. So should be exciting.
All right. Sounds good. Well, we'll do now the awkward fade back into the music. And we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Yep.